Hey everybody, Jason here. Another little video to talk about on my drive home today. It has to do with the OSR, and I don't currently play any OSR games, although stylistically and mechanics-wise, that's where my brain, and that's where I tend to be leaning towards after we're done with 5th edition, which who knows how long that'll be, but. So I've been wanting to take a stab at the OSR and going back to kind of my roots to classic D&D and that style of play. But it's been so long since I've played those games that I don't really remember how they played and how they flowed and things like that. So there were two things I wanted to talk about and kind of ask the community and get some feedback and see what everybody thinks. And the first thing was a question. Well, it deals both two questions. One of them, and they both deal with the lethality of OSR. Excuse me. Sorry, I've got a cold and it's starting to clear up a little bit, but. So when you're playing an OSR game, like a classic game like Swords and Wizardry or White Box, Fantastic Needle Adventures, any of those old school OSR games where they're highly lethal, you start out with 2 or 3 hit points, sometimes 4 or 5, whatever. But you tend to hear stories of people going through characters like water, and one of the things I was wondering, I apologize, is when you're playing and you got you have characters dying and things like that, and you keep creating new characters, how do you deal with the idea of becoming attached to your character? Like, you want to grow the character, right? Otherwise you have no real reason really to level up other than to get new abilities or hit points or whatever. But so you want to grow attached to a character because of the storyline and the character growth and the arcs and stuff that it goes through. But you also want to play the story. So with the high lethality in the games, and you go through bunches of characters and stuff, do you tend to get more attached to the story and forget about what you have for a character, as far as like a character, leveling up and growing and becoming attached to the story, the background, the arc of that character? Or do you become more accustomed to attachment to the arc of the story and the story that's being told? So, for example, I create a fighter named, whatever, Bob, whatever, and I come up with this, interesting little backstory for it, or for him, and I'm in playing a story or a small mini campaign, whatever the case may be, of there's a certain warlord who has risen up in a neighboring duchy or something like that, and you say, okay, this is happening, the story's growing, he's growing in power, he's recruiting more armies, he's somehow started up truces between orcs and kobolds and goblins and this and that and hill giants, and he's amassing an army to attack this small part of the kingdom, this other duchy or barony or whatever. Do you get involved better with the story plots of the story and forget completely about the character because the lethality is so high that you don't really know if your character is going to die or not? Or do you get involved, really involved with the character and attached to it just to have it die halfway through the first session or second session or whatever, and then have to introduce a new character, and then because of the lethality it dies in the same adventure that it's introduced in or session, and then you introduce a new character and then a new character? Because I've heard stories of people introducing and going through 3, 4, 5 characters in a night with OSR, because that's how lethal and dangerous it is. So that was one thing that I've puzzled about and stressed a little bit about, like, you know, if I play these, if I want to get these kinds of games, more than likely I'll be the one running them. I don't know that the rest of my group would have any interest in running a game like that. Playing in it, they probably would have no problem with. Running it probably is very easy compared to 5th edition, but you know, the person introducing a new game or systems tend to be the guy that runs it. So that was one thing I was pondering a lot. And the other thing that I was wondering was, if you do go through numerous characters in a session or an adventure or whatever, you know, say I've been playing that campaign where it's the, you know, the guy I just mentioned, building the army and attacking other kingdoms and all that stuff. Say I go through like 8 characters and 3 or 4 sessions of play. The more I go through those characters and the more I stay unattached to them because I keep running through them like water, more than likely, you know, will they get introduced in the same session? Like, say we're, you know, trying to secure an item, a map, for example, in this warlord's castle because we think it might give us a little bit of, you know, advantage on taking down maybe some people in the warlord's army. So we go to get this map to see where he's got location or items and equipment stashed, and where some of his armies are training or whatever. And we're gonna go interrupt this operation or whatever. So we're in the castle, and one of my guys, you know, my character gets killed. Okay, there's a sword fight in a hallway, and he gets killed. So the GM introduces my new character later in the same session, in the same scenario, where in this castle we come across a jail cell that's got prisoners of war, and one of the ones that's locked up happens to be the new character I just created, for example. That sounds like a very simple and easy way to introduce a new character, right? So say this happens 2 or 3 times, or even once or twice in a scenario even. If you have these people that die and introduced and die and introduced, does that immersion, the breaking of the immersion of that story, the breaking of the immersion in the game affect the story and how you relate to it? Like, does it seem like extra lives in a video game where you just don't care? Like, yeah, I'm gonna die, but I got a backup character here. I'll just, you know, it's a game where you have infinite continues, you know. You have 7 lives, you know, you play through, you lose all your lives, and the game says continue or quit. Continue or quit, but you can continue as many times as you want where you left off. So there's really no consequence for dying in the game because you have so many of them, so many lives that you just keep playing. You know, is that the kind of feeling you get sometimes in an OSR or a highly lethal game where you keep reintroducing new characters and new characters? Like, do you just give up and stop the story because you die and you've died a couple times and it might seem unrealistic to keep going? Or do you keep going and introducing new characters and keep going and keep going so the consequence of death means nothing? Or I guess in another train of thought, now that I said that out loud, should there, depending on your style of play and what kind of story you want to tell, should there even be a consequence for death? Should you be worried about dying? Should you be concerned with, you know, having 3 or 4 characters, you know, in a 1 or 2 session period, time span, that keep dying and you're running through them like video game lives, you know what I mean? Maybe in an effort to tell a good story, you just have to accept breaking the immersion of the game world by having a new character every session or every 2 sessions or more than once per session or whatever. So it might sound like I'm rambling a little bit, which I usually do because it's hard for me to kind of externalize my thoughts and articulate it, but you know, those are a couple things I've been thinking about recently, you know. So anybody out there who's played a lot of OSR or lethal systems and have played long-term adventures or scenarios or campaigns or whatever, give me a little bit of feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. You know, does it bother you or your players or your group to go through a bunch of characters and not really get the chance to get attached to them because they're dying, but you have the story to back up and get attached to in that way? And does it feel like having the option of just creating a new character when you die feel not very consequential? There's no weight or gravitas behind it, like oh, I died, you know, who cares, I'll just create a new character real quick and we'll be on our way? Or is it like, oh man, I invested so much time and energy into the backstory of that character, and not just the backstory, but the role-playing effort and the emotion into the character's attitude and outlook on life and how he, you know, interacted with the world, and I really felt an attachment to that character, and now it's gone, and now I got to create a new one and somehow get attached to that one. You know, is it a little disheartening? Is it a little surgical and kind of stale and unfeeling? Or is it like who cares about the characters? The story's cool. Again, if you guys have played any of that kind of stuff and you got a little bit of feedback for me, I would much appreciate it. I don't know when I'm going to get to start running any sort of OSR game for my group, but that is my intention. And dealing with those kinds of things up front and being able to bring those up, say we have a session 0, I can bring these things up to the group before we start play and let them know, hey, you know, here's some things we might come across in this style of play which you guys have never played before, because these guys have all cut their teeth on Pathfinder and 5th edition, where it's not that easy to die. You have to kind of really try to die in some of these games, especially 5th edition with all the death saves and, you know, 100 plus hit points by level 8 to 10 or whatever, and things like that. So anyway, I've rambled enough. There was no reason this video had to be 12 minutes long, but I guess it is. So anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the new subscriptions we've had to the channel. Not a lot, but a few, but I do appreciate that. And I appreciate all the comments people have been leaving on videos and stuff too. So I really enjoy the community communication. So anyway, you guys take care. Have a good day, and I look forward to your comments, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.